Welcome to Seasoned. I'm Marisol Castro.
And I'm Chef Plum.
Chef, it's always great to see you the last Thursday of the month.
It is. It's fantastic. I love being in person.
I see you more than I go to Mass because I was thinking, what do I do once a month? I used to go to church once a month, but now my church is Gateway Community College.
There you go. And it makes sense because I'm officially a reverend now. So
Are you really?
I married a client of mine 2 weekends ago. So
Mazel.
There we go. For $49.95 off of youmarrypeople2.com. But yes, it's true. It's true. So I'm glad.
Fantastic. Well, as you can glean, we are live from our studio in New Haven at Gateway Community College. And today's special because
I'm so excited for this show.
If you are a fan of America's Test Kitchen on PBS,
my hands up.
Yeah, both my hands are up. This is the show for you.
Co-host Bridget Lancaster is Zooming with us, answering your cooking questions live and on the air. And I have a few myself, actually. If you've got a question for Bridget about a technique or a recipe you saw on the show, join us by calling 203-776-9677 or 203-776-WNPR.
Bridget Lancaster, welcome to Seasoned.
Hello, hello, hello. So great to be with you all.
It's so great to hear your voice. Theater of the mind, that's what radio is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Bridget and our listeners, I'm looking over at Plum, I'm casting my gaze. He has a tome of Homeric proportions.
Wow.
This cookbook means business.
It's legit. Wow. It is legit. I mean, this is every recipe from the TV show from 2001 to 2022, Bridget. That's crazy.
That is crazy. And triple points for Homeric.
Right?
That is crazy. That's up there with Flintstonian.
Wow.
I love both of those terms.
This former English teacher here, so I try
to.
I just, before we get with all these questions, I want to give our listeners a little background. America's Test Kitchen has been airing since 2001 on PBS, so snaps for the longevity. You started off as a test kitchen chef. And you've been its co-host with Julia Collin Davison since 2017. So what was it like teaching America how to cook in the early 2000s? This was before all the celebrity chef entered our lexicon. It was before the birth of so many different Food Network channels, even YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what was
That's
that
right.
like? Yeah, what was that like?
we were part of that, the whole PBS drive. So it was educational television. It still is educational television. And we were, when you think of how to for, fixing things around your house, you might think of This Old House. But we became kind of the This Old House for cooking to so many people. And we had people that were there before us, like Julia Child, obviously, just to name one giant in the industry. So getting into this idea of an ensemble cast, and by the way, I should point out that none of us were hired to be on television. We were hired to test recipes, and that's exactly who you got on television. So I think at the beginning, if I look back to that season 1, it's very unfortunate. I'm like, what was I thinking?
No way.
The lighting, us, everything. We're just so uncomfortable. It looked like we were being forced to do it against our will.
No.
But when I look back at that, it still is, and you can still see the original show today. And in that, I mean that we're just trying to get people to feel more comfortable in the kitchen. And you can do that by telling people what's going on in the skillet in front of you or in the oven. And if they know why things are happening, they'll become a better cook.
Yeah, I think you guys, it doesn't seem like that. You come together very well on TV. I don't know.
Yeah,
it seems like
I agree.
It seems like you're all besties and you cook for each other all the time. Like I picture when you're not there, you just go into dinner parties at each other's houses.
Well, they say, the old saying is you got to fake it till you make it. But we never had to fake it. We were just always talking about food. So what happens with us is we forget the camera's on. And that's, I think, what you're getting.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what makes it so, and has made it so magical, is
and
that
relatable.
Is that you don't think that there is that little red light on. You're just doing you.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And we genuinely do like being around each other. So how can you not like being around food people? Right?
Exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like Marisol said, this tome of recipes is here, and it's literally every recipe from all 22 seasons of the show, and it's a fantastic book. And I don't know if you could ever have a favorite recipe from this ginormous book, or do you have one? And what are a few home cooked favorites that you knew readers would absolutely make a beeline for?
Oh boy, a favorite. That is, I mean, we're talking how many recipes are in here.
That's a lot.
And they switch. So what's always in my mind is probably something that I've done more recently. We just finished, actually just wrapped shooting season 23, believe it or not.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I think this recipe does has found its way into the current cookbook, which is Yule log.
Whoa.
It was something that we put off filming during the pandemic, just for, the facilities and having the people there to help us make it. And we can get into the kind of what happens on TV or what you don't see. People are just constantly producing the food at different periods so that we can shoot 5 or 6 recipes a day. And the Yule log was such a masterpiece. I think I lost 20 pounds making it on camera just from nerves. Because I didn't want the recipe itself is actually, I wouldn't call it simplistic, but it's actually really straightforward. But having, the cameras there and, people are like, we're waiting.
Oh my gosh.
And, it's one of those holiday recipes that comes with pressure.
I was just going to say, for the dummy in the room, I'm raising my hand. What is the culinary version of Yule log? What is a Yule log?
So a Yule log, or often referred to as a bûche de Noël. So it's one of those roulade cakes that looks like a log, and it's frosted with buttercream, and sometimes you make a little
Plum is acting out what that looked like, and it made complete sense while you were talking. He was pretending he was making it, and now I know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, it's adorable, and often you make meringue mushrooms with it. Our version has the meringue mushrooms, but they're bracket mushrooms, so they actually look like real mushrooms coming off the side of the tree. And there's the fake, quote unquote, dirt, the forest floor, which is, ground crumbles of chocolate and cocoa and nuts. And it's outstanding. So I would say that it's definitely one of my favorite recipes. That's one I feel like victorious at having gotten through it.
Okay.
And some of the other ones that I absolutely love were the Korean fried chicken wings that we did several years ago. That is constant rotation here in House of Lancaster. And the pork tinga, we'll always go back to that. Sticky buns, that I think that was the first season that Julie and I were co-hosting. And the little clips from that actually became quite famous because we lost it halfway through tasting. We just couldn't stop laughing. I think it was a sugar rush. And, it was our first year as host, so there was all this pent up energy. And we lost it. We just couldn't stop laughing. It was one of those old kind of Carol Burnett show moments where they just couldn't stop laughing.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, it was just wonderful. But I tend to equate, the recipes that I do on TV. I'll make little memories of it with whoever I'm cooking it with. Like I did this pork ragu with Keith, who's great, and it's how I get to know people on a different level that I work with is cooking with them on television, because you tend to kind of start talking about everything if the camera's on you, and so you can learn things from the people that you work with.
Absolutely. Bridget Lancaster, the co-host of America's Test Kitchen on PBS, is joining us on the show today. If you have a question for her, you can give us a call. The number is 203-776-9677 or 203-776-WNPR. And I want to point out, I definitely would have lost a bet on the whole Yule log cake thing. I would never have guessed that she would have said that was her favorite, one of her favorite recipes. Oh, I was like, really? Wow, that's awesome.
Right. But then you also mentioned Korean wings.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, because like you said, you forget that the cameras are on and you're just doing your thing. How often are you tasting things when you are cooking for the show? And are you like, oh my gosh, this has gone terribly awry. How am I going to make this work?
Well, the testing process for any of our recipes, and the majority of our recipes for America's Test Kitchen come from Cooks Illustrated magazine. And the testing method is one that it's been with us pretty much from the startup. We've tweaked it, but so when a recipe starts, we come up with, say, roast chicken, or if we want to be more narrow, we'll say lemon roast chicken. So we'll start with that. And then we'll go and we'll call a whole bunch of recipes from various sources. And then we'll make them all simultaneously and have people come in, and none of them are identified. So people don't know exactly what they're tasting. There could be no fan favorites at that point. And they write down exactly what they like or don't like. And then we start to craft kind of our direction from there. And at each little step, we are tasting all the different variables. So we're testing, say, a half a teaspoon of baking powder to a quarter teaspoon of baking powder for a baking recipe.
That minutia,
Wow.
it gets that specific?
Absolutely. And some recipes, so say something like a steak, that might be done quicker because you're not dealing with a whole bunch of different ingredients. But some baking recipes or candy recipes are notorious for taking a long, long time because you're talking with heat temperature, you're talking about the depth of browning, how much sugar, what type of sugar, all the different variables. But when we get to a point where we think that we've got it, we do what's called an abuse test, and that's where we'll bake in different ovens, or we'll cook on different stovetops and different pans. And then we send it out to something called Friends of Cooks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of our little army of people who've signed up on our website to test our recipes at home before they're published. And we get so much great information. I mean, I'm talking thousands and thousands of people give us feedback on these recipes. And so they'll tell us, no, we need more instruction here, or I couldn't find this ingredient, or this didn't work for me. And if there's a consensus and change, then we'll change the recipes, take it back to the test kitchen. But the thing that we're always looking for is that we have to get an 80%, I would make this again, in order for it to be published in the magazine. And then it goes on to the kitchen.
You have to get at least a B-.
Yeah, that's great. B- is passing.
Life,
yeah,
right?
It's passing grade. And just so everyone knows, Bridget herself actually answers all of those emails. She sees them and reads them. It's just her.
That's why nobody receives the response.
Let's take a quick call here. We've got Denise from Wyndham. Denise, welcome to Seasoned. What do you have for Bridget today?
Hi. Yes, my question is, I've been following you guys for many, many, many years, and sometimes your recipes have multiple steps, take a lot of time, and I was wondering if, since you've been married and have a family, if your outlook on that has changed the way that you cook.
Yes, definitely.
In short, yes.
I would say that our recipes are absolutely, you're right. Some of our recipes have many steps, multiple dishes are dirtied throughout the process. But I always think that is a great jumping off point. I would say that I myself will simplify even some of our recipes as best I can, or I think it allows the people at home, if they know that the basics are there and that the recipe is going to work, then right. I also keep a journal in my kitchen of the recipes that I've made, and I will just jot down quick notes. I could have done it this way. I could have done this. I could have, skipped that step just for my own sake. So I think you are your own, you are the chef of your own kitchen. So take control and, definitely feel free to experiment with flavors. If you don't have this herb, try another one that you have on hand. And absolutely, just keep a journal and think about, or write it right on the cookbook. My cookbook is absolutely cluttered with all my notes. Write it down where you might make a change. But you're right. As I've gotten older and wiser, and the children have kept me in check. They're not really children anymore; they're teens.
Oh my gosh.
It has changed how I cook at home. And being your own dishwasher definitely
changes
how you
the
cook.
game for sure.
Absolutely. I like paper plates.
I like a one-pot dish.
That's it.
And only using a ladle and one knife.
That's it.
That's right.
And that's what they're all going to eat with, too.
Exactly.
What can I cook with a Bic lighter? Right?
Exactly. You talk about memories, and you talk about your own cookbooks, and I have to imagine, like so many other Boston chefs, you have some Julia Child stories, and I wonder if you could jar your memory for us and just highlight one in particular.
I absolutely loved that lady so much, as many of us did. She came to the set in the early days for a visit, and it was just so quiet. No, we were all in awe.
Mhm.
I've I met Julia, I think the first time. I love how I'm on a first name basis with her. I met Julia Child for the first time when I was actually working for Williams Sonoma a long time ago.
Look at you.
I was also a pastry chef, but I was, mama's got to have two jobs to eat. So I was working at Williams Sonoma, and we had a lot of celebrity chefs come through to sign cookbooks and do events. And this was during one of the terrible, terrible Boston winter.
Mm.
And there was, it was just one of those ice storms. And the Julia, all the roads were slicked over, and they had no way to get there. No, the person that was supposed to bring her wasn't able to do it. So another person that I worked with went to go visit Julia Child, and had to hold on to Julia Child, who was not a short person. She was a very tall, statuesque woman. And we held on to her and kind of skated her across this icy driveway, because she was determined to get there, and drove through this ice storm to get back to the store for her fans that were waiting on her. And I just remember walking across that icy driveway thinking, I am going to be known from this day forward as the person who dropped America's treasure at this point. That's all I could think. And luckily I didn't. And she was so gracious. A couple years later, my husband, who's a chef, he gave me a call at work, and he's like, Julia Child's in here. And I went out to talk to her, and she didn't understand a word I was saying, because he's from Scotland and he has a very thick accent. And I said, well, that would have been very funny. Wish I would have seen that. But, she was the start of so many of our careers, and the fact that I'm doing anything close to what she did is just amazing to me.
Absolutely. Julia Child stories make me so happy. Like, my heart just warms up a little bit. Absolutely. Listeners, if you learned how to cook by watching America's Test Kitchen, or there's a recipe from the show that's become, one of your go-tos, call us up right now while you have the ear of the co-host extraordinaire, Bridget Lancaster. If there's a vegetable like fennel that you can't figure out or want to eat, or prickly artichokes have come to mind too, nobody knows how to deal with them. Give us a call here at 203-776-9677 or 203-776-WNPR is the number to call. I'm Chef Plum.
I'm Marisol Castro. You're listening to Seasoned on Connecticut Public Radio. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Seasoned. I'm Marisol Castro.
And I'm Chef Plum.
We are spending this live hour of Seasoned with Bridget Lancaster, co-host of America's Test Kitchen, the most watched cooking show on PBS. And she's been talking us through recipes, kitchen tools, ingredients, Julia Child, everything in between. If you have a question for her, now's your time to call. 203-776-9677. That's 203-776-WNPR. Now, I love that I have two chefs with me.
Okay.
Because before the break, we were talking about tedious things to cook. You know this, Chef Plum. I have a fear of cooking an artichoke.
Yes, you do.
I never feel more mortal than when I'm attempting to cook an artichoke, which is why I never do.
You don't do it.
Can someone please help me? And by someone, I mean Bridget Lancaster and maybe Chef Plum.
Great person to ask. She should go first.
Oh, boy. Artichokes I call them the lobster of the vegetable world. There's just so much that you have to do to them to get to that tiny little bit of sweet meat, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do I properly scoop it out? I've read Cooks Illustrated. I've watched the show. A nice spoon.
Yep.
Do I soak it in a lemon water? I mean, what's the best way to pick it out when I'm in the produce aisle? I find myself squeezing the leaves, and if it squeezes back at me, I'm like, oh, this is a good one.
What?
Wait a minute.
What if that's a new one?
Honestly, I learned that from my childhood. There was this little Italian lady I remember at Seatown, and she said to my mom, like she's in her
Squeeze it.
She squeeze it, and if it talks back to you, she said this in Italian. That's the one to buy. So that's.
Oh.
Now you have something to add. Now you have something to add to
Bridget, we
America's
got to take
Test
that with
Kitchen.
us. That's pretty good.
I am speechless here.
Yeah.
I am going to head to the supermarket here in a moment.
I'm going to go
Try
talk
to
to
squeeze
all.
myself some
I'm
artichokes.
going to go
Please
talk to
do.
all of them.
Go talk to all of them, and hopefully they talk back to you. Okay, give it to me. Give me the Reader's Digest version. What do I do to an artichoke?
Well, you're on the right track. You do want to tug at the leaves to see if any of them kind of fall apart or fall away from it. If they do, that means that artichoke's been sitting there for a while. But what do you like? Do you like steamed artichokes? Do you like sauteed?
I like delicious artichoke.
Oh boy.
I don't want to steam it. I want, since it takes so much trouble, I want it meaty. I want it yummy. Maybe
Yeah.
grilled.
I agree.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
I agree with you. Well, you do want to. Okay, so there's a stem that comes with it. It depends on how long the stem is, but you'll want to trim it, and then you'll want to peel the stem if you want to eat a little bit of that. You don't want to eat too much of that. Artichokes is one of those things that it's really hard. I'm just realizing it's really hard for me to tell you how to do it without showing you. I wish I was there. You do want to peel away a lot of the outer leaves.
Mm-hmm.
You can cut them in half, which is really great. I think it's a really great way is to roast them. I think that makes them super meaty. So you want to strip away some of the layers of the outer leaves. You want to start to scrape the flesh after you have cooked the artichoke. So you're going to take off most of the stem. You're going to leave, I'm actually looking at it right now, leave about a ½ inch attached.
Bridget had no idea this was going to happen when she came on season.
No.
Oh my gosh.
So you're going to take the outer leaves and you're going to kind of peel them back or break them off, for a few layers of those, and then take a little paring knife. I also, the old fashioned vegetable peelers that had kind of the pointy tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite
Tools.
pieces of equipment for this and then you want to start to kind of trim that outer layer of stem. So you can take the tip and then that little bit of the peeler just to trim that because they're super expensive. You don't want to trim too much away. You want to get rid of the dark green stuff. Then cut it in half. Get rid of that choke because now it's cut in half. So that fuzzy bit in the inside, you can get rid of all that. And then if there's any little leaves in there that are discolored or kind of purplish, you want to get rid of those. And then those halves, you want to soak them in lemon water just to prevent them from coloring. But if you don't care about that, you don't need to. The lemon water is only there to prevent them from coloring.
I thought that was a flavor
brush them with a
thing.
little bit of oil and then roast them with salt and pepper. And they're just delicious.
Yeah, I agree with Bridget completely there. The only thing I do, I have a client of mine who loves them, and I take scissors and snip off little pointy ends with scissors and then cut the end of it off about ½ an inch, 3/4 of an inch from the bottom, take some of that off. Same thing, peel the stem a little bit. Then I split them in half, and I actually will cook them kind of like almost similar to pasta. So I'll bring my water to a boil, right, just to start it. Heavily salted, heavily acidulated. So acidulated, put lemon in there.
Yeah.
Drop them in just for a few minutes, and then pull them out just to get it started. And I find it's easier than pull the
guts out.
Right. And then when you pull out, dry them off, you can grill them a lot easier that way. You can roast them a lot easier that way. Because
Holy
sometimes
moly.
if I don't blanch them, and Bridget, this is because I'm a gorilla and I just mess things up constantly.
Stop it.
But I do that to kind of give myself a little like safety net to fall in. That way, it is fully cooked. It's cooked all the way through then, as opposed to
great.
letting it get overcooked. So
Right.
I
love that idea.
Just lightly blanch it, and that acidulated water makes a big difference. And when I said like pasta, I mean like in a very large pot full of water, not some small little pot.
Right.
When you cook your pasta, you want that in a big large pot. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to
I mean,
try this. You two are exhausted
I'm
now.
sweating just thinking
I hope we have a caller to give you guys
taking notes.
a slight
Oh my gosh.
a slight
Speaking
break.
of that, give us a call here at 203-776-9677 or 203-776-WNPR. Bridget Lancaster is joining us here. She's the co-host of America's Test Kitchen. So much great information. The new book just came out. It is all the recipes from 2001 to 2022. It is thousands and thousands and thousands of recipes, but you know what else is in there? It's pretty cool. A cool section in that book all about kitchen tools and things
love
you need
this.
in the kitchen. Can we talk about tools for a moment, Bridget? Is that okay?
Please. I'd love to.
We love the segments on America's Test Kitchens when chefs make a case for a certain knife or a pan or an appliance. What's that testing process like, and what's a tool that you were originally skeptical about and now you can't cook without it? Like, really, what's in your gadget drawer at home? That's really what we want to know.
Yeah, my gadget drawer is actually pretty well refined because I used to buy everything. And now, I definitely notice what I keep going back to. The testing process that we do in the test kitchen is we do not test anything that comes straight from the vendor. When we decide that we want to test a certain type of product, say, can openers, we go and we do the shopping, and we try to shop from different areas of the country, or we source it from, a ginormous mail order company that you might know. Right. Some people might order things from that area or that company. Yep. It rhymes with Blamazon.
I gotta write this down. What is this crazy thing you're talking about? We're in the future.
But we're very careful to never ever test anything that's direct from the manufacturer, because they might send us things that have special features not available to other people. So we put things through the ringer. Basically the whole thing is we use the pans or the spoons or whatever it is as they are intended. And then we will also do some abuse testing. So we want to mimic what things are going to be like after 5 years of use, 10 years of use. There's great video of Lisa McManus that I work with, actually bashing skillets on a concrete sidewalk outside of our office. Just to, really, really try to abuse it. And another one was 4 zipper lock bags. We filled them with spaghetti sauces, and we had to kind of rig this almost like this sort of makeshift robot that would drop these bags from a certain height to see how long they would stay intact without bursting open. So that's how we do our testing. And that's really, we put it through the ringer. But I would say the thing that surprised me, and I know that the technology is good, I just didn't think I would use it so much. It was an immersion circulator, a sous vide stick. Mm-hmm. I can't believe how many times when I'm in conversations with my family, who all received those as Christmas gifts over the various years.
You're a great gift giver.
Yeah.
I'll say, have you tried sous videing this? Which I don't know, sous vide is a verb, but have you tried cooking this in the sous vide? And it's just, I don't know. There's something about it that it feels like I'm cheating, because you can hold foods, especially proteins. You can hold foods at temperature for hours. So say that you're making steaks, you can, and you've got a bunch of people coming over. You don't want to be over the grill for 20, 30 minutes, however you're cooking it. You can cook the steaks so that they're up to a certain temperature, and then just finish them for a minute or two on the grill.
And they're so succulent. It's amazing. It makes such a difference.
Make a better steak, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And a lot of these gadgets and stuff we see, just because they're expensive doesn't mean they're good. I switched from my expensive knives I used to use to a local company who makes them, and they're fantastic.
Yeah. They do the job.
Absolutely. We've got Bridget from Stanford calling in here. Let's talk to her.
Bridget.
Bridget, welcome to Seasoned. Hey, great name. What do you got for our show today?
Bridget, I was watching the show several years, and I always wondered, because we're all told to chop the garlic and let it rest for a few minutes so that all the good stuff can come out before you throw it in the pan for cooking. But you guys never did that. I'm like, why aren't they letting the garlic rest? Rest the garlic before you...
Yeah. Right? That is something that we have tested, and that we have not found that to be the case. And if you have a board that's even slightly absorbent, a lot of that garlic flavor is going to be going right to your board. So it's not worth, certainly it's not worth the waiting on for the garlic. And the rule of thumb with garlic. We're going to call it the rule of garlic from now on.
I like the rule of garlic.
New T-shirt, by the way.
It's the more you chop it, the smaller the pieces, the more flavor that you are basically releasing. So that really is the only thing that's going to affect the flavor, whether it's being allowed to come out, as you said, before it hits the pan. So if you want a lot of garlic flavor to go into that pan, you want to mince it really fine. Now, if you want a softer garlic, then keep pieces bigger.
Now, Bridget, would you recommend doing garlic not on a wooden cutting board? Would you suggest maybe taking a smaller, like, plastic board or something like that out to do it on?
It depends on you. We were talking a little earlier. I love garlic. I will take garlic flavored anything, even the things that people say garlic doesn't belong in. So I think as long as you're cleaning, your soap and water will take the garlic flavor out of a chopping board most of the times. But yeah, I keep a wooden board. Actually, all my kitchen counters are wood. So my whole kitchen is the giant wood cutting board. But I do keep plastic on hand or the kind of nylon boards.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, for like meat or stinky vegetables, I would say.
Great tip. I think
like
it's a good idea. Yeah, absolutely. And I like the smaller the garlic, the more the flavor.
I love garlic too. Well, from gadgets to pantry,
Mm.
because our listeners love to know what the pros have in their pantry. So what are your go-tos? I open up the pantry. First of all, is everything alphabetized?
No. Oh, you'd be so disappointed. You would just, I am like, my pantry looks like Kramer from Seinfeld
Wow.
organized it or something.
Wow.
It's terrible. I have lots of different salt. I would say that's something that I get a little nerdy about. I love different kinds of salt for different applications. I love Malden sea salt, the big flakes to add to toss over or to sprinkle over everything from, a piece of beautifully roasted chicken or some sort of chocolate dessert. Just goes right over the top of it. I love to keep lots of different olive oils on hand, although I feel like I've been paring those down. So I have a supermarket extra virgin olive oil, and then I might have a really lovely imported oil, probably that was given to me as a gift.
Excellent.
Vinegars, all kinds of vinegars, because they will wake up. They're kind of like the unsung hero of seasoning. We always talk about salt and pepper, but
Acid.
a little splash of acid, right? Can just
acidation. What did you call it?
acidification.
Acidulated.
Acidulated.
There you go.
Acidulate the food. Yes.
Seasoned.
So
come for the recipes, stay for the vocabulary
There's
lesson.
some serious vocabulary word in this episode.
A little bit of splash of vinegar, especially if you've cooked something for a really long time. So a stew, or think of something like lentils or ham split pea soup, anything that cooks for a long time. If you just check that seasoning with a little bit of vinegar or a little spoonful of mustard or something, that can brighten it up.
Yeah.
And then, there's the 1,000 different kinds of breakfast cereal I have.
Oh, Captain Crunch berries. What do you have?
I have a problem with breakfast cereal. I have a real problem. I love the stuff.
What's your favorite?
My goodness, my favorite all time is Frosted Flakes.
Oh,
I feel like they're like,
I knew it.
they're naughty cornflakes, right? Which is probably why I love them.
Tony the Tiger goes rogue, and
Right.
Wow.
And then for the non-Frosted Flakes fans, I have lots of different cans of tomatoes, and I keep these spices kind of on a minimum. Even the dried spices, I tend to go back to a few of them, and I keep a lot of my spices actually in bulk in my chest freezer and keep very little in my drawer.
That's great. I mean, I like a good spices, a good spice to use, but I keep it very simple, like a good chili powder, cumin, some staple items. I'm not a big fan of, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of dry herbs either. Bridget, what do you think of dry herbs? Are you a fan of those?
That's a good question.
I can be a fan of them. I think that they are, as I cook more and more, I go to them less and less. But I think dried oregano, dried thyme are two that I will keep going back to. They do have a different flavor than the fresh, but I don't dislike that flavor.
Yeah, and I always tell people too when they use them to be smart about it. And what you want to do is you want to put it in your hand at first, and you want to mush it with your fingers a little bit to release those oils. It really changes the flavor of a dry herb when you do actually want to use it in something. And that is a proper culinary term, by the way, mush it in your
Mush.
That is.
You learned
Yes.
that your second year of
You can mush
culinary
it.
school.
That's it. That's it right there. That's not a first year term.
I do have, I was just thinking about the cans of things that I have. I do have a can of haggis in my pantry.
Oh, no.
I haven't, yeah.
And for
It's,
listeners that don't know, haggis is.
I can't say it.
Yeah, if I said it on air, people would just turn the radio off. But basically, it's canned haggis is a Scottish sausage, I will call it, of sheep stomach that is filled with suet and different cuts of sheep innards. How
That
about that?
sounds delicious. Do you top
That
that over
sounds
your
gorgeous.
Frosted Flakes? Is that how you?
It's terrible.
No, the best way is just to keep it in the can
Okay.
and
For
just
posterity's
forget about
sake.
it
The
until
trash
the
can.
next year
Keep-
when I find it again.
Keep
Exactly.
it in the trash can. That's the can she's talking about. There we go. If you want to talk to Bridget Lancaster from America's Test Kitchen, give us a call. You have a question about what to do with haggis, give us a call. The number is
No,
203-776-9677 or 203-776-WNPR. We're so excited to be having this time with her right now. Before we go to break, just really quick, Bridget, we got to ask a little bit about burgers because America's Test Kitchen recommends an 80% lean ground chuck and making that indentation in the middle of the burger before grilling. Just talk about that for a second. Talk about the burger and that 80% ground.
Yeah, so that is the right ratio of lean to fat. So you're getting, 80% lean, 20% fat. Anything less than that, you're going to have a burger that can tend to get really, really kind of hard and tough. And then the divot, I was there when the divot was created.
What?
The divot in the burger, we think about burgers, often they end up looking more like a meatball. And this was to create just a little indentation in the center so that when it pops back up, think that little pop-up timer on the turkey. And when it pops back up, that's the burger's beautifully flat and it doesn't look anything like a meatball. But, burgers are one of those things that it's basically, if you're grilling them, you just turn all those burners to high unless you've got one of those super, turbo grills, but just turn all the burgers to high and get that grill grate screaming hot. That is absolutely key. Then scrape it. And, you just want to put the burgers on the grill, cook them like 2 to 3 minutes per side, but do not press on them because you're going to press all those gorgeous juices out.
Absolutely. And I always tell people to let them come to room temperature first if you can, if you're not too afraid of that. And don't forget to salt them. Very, very important. Salt your burgers.
Very important. And let them rest afterwards, about 5-10 minutes.
I love it. Listeners, we are spending this hour coming to you live from our studio at Gateway Community College with Bridget Lancaster. Give us a call. She's here to answer questions. And after the break, we're going to ask her what her favorite television shows are to watch. Ooh. And yeah, I think you and I both love Paul Hollywood. That is a teaser. Give us a call, 203-776-9677, 203-776-WNPR. You're listening to Seasoned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Seasoned. I'm Marisol Castro.
And I'm Chef Plum.
If you have a cooking question for Bridget Lancaster, co-host of America's Test Kitchen, we can squeeze in a call right now. 203-776-9677. That's 203-776-WNPR. Join us on the air. I mean, we have an expert.
Yes, we do.
So exploit her brain like I am about to. When we last saw our heroine, I was asking you about your favorite TV shows, and a little birdie told me you may or may not like The Great British Bake Off. True or false?
Love it. Love it. It is, I get that same kind of contentment that I used to get from watching Bob Ross paint. But it's that just like everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Everybody's supportive of each other. There's, it's
Happy
just such a lovely show in every way.
I was late to the game with that show, but once I started watching, I was hooked. And now have you ever seen it, Plum?
A couple episodes I have.
Those blue piercing eyes of
Paul
Hollywood. And if he shakes your hand, you're pretty much guaranteed to win the show. And it's mayhem, but it's controlled mayhem.
I don't think I noticed that part of it. Wow, if he shakes a hand, you win, huh?
If he shakes your hand, they're like, I'm never washing my hand again.
Oh, all right. Well,
which is terrible if you're cooking.
Which is awful, right?
Exactly. Let's take another call here. We've got Mary from Stamford. She wants to know a really great grilling question going back to our burgers. Mary, welcome to Season. What do you got for the show today?
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I was wondering what's a good marinade for like an inexpensive steak or if you're doing kebabs on the grill.
Great question. Great question.
Yep. So a lot of marinades will, if they're too acidic, they'll actually start to break down the food a little bit, and you can get this kind of mushy kind of coating around them. The key to a good marinade is some sort of sodium, because that's the only way that the liquid, whatever you're using to soak that in, is actually going to make its way into, say, the meat. So I always think as long as it has soy sauce or enough salt in it, and time, 30 minutes of time, especially for smaller pieces of kebab meat, you're fine. So my go-to marinade is probably soy sauce, a little bit of water. So you don't want all soy sauce, a little bit of water, some minced garlic, maybe a few smashed like bird chilies or red pepper flakes in there, and just a little bit of brown sugar. And I mean like a quarter teaspoon, just helps with browning so that the food doesn't get have to spend too much time on the grill before it turns nice and crusty and brown on the outside.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip right there too. The sugar really helps kind of add to that caramelization. Even though meats don't caramelize, it's called the Maillard reaction. That's what meats do. We've talked about this before. But for me, I'm a big fan of keeping things dry and using dry rubs. I enjoy making for steak, a little thyme, garlic, good salt. I don't think you need much more than that with it. But if you have something tougher, like Bridget was saying, doing that wet marinade is a great way to go. But for me, I would take it off, dry it, and then put it on the grill. So when it goes on the grill dry, because you want it to get those nice char marks on the outside. If it's wet, it won't. It will steam. If it's dry, it'll actually sear off. So there's my public service announcement. Sorry, Bridget.
Nailed it.
Yes. Oh, she has another question.
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
When you do the marinade, do you add like any olive oil or vinegar or lemon juice?
Well, it depends. If you are going to wipe that off, no, I don't think you would need to add any olive oil to your marinade. If you're going to just go straight from the marinade to your cooking vessel, or whatever that is, if that's a saute pan or under the broiler or the grill, you might want to add a little bit of olive oil, especially if it's something like chicken or pork loin or pork tenderloin, something that's really, really lean and might stick to the grill.
Yeah, adding that fat. Great questions, Mary. We appreciate you. Thanks for calling. Bridget, just to go along to kind of tag that a little bit, I'm curious what your thoughts are when it comes to this. So if you're cooking something like a chicken breast or even steak, I guess any kind of protein, a lot of people try to marinate their meats overnight. And I always say that's almost overkill. Maybe you don't need to do it overnight, especially if it's something that's going on the grill or, like a steak or a burger or a piece of chicken, because so many of us do put that acid in there and that can start to break it down almost too much. Is that something you guys have tested at the America's Test Kitchen?
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to marinades, like you mentioned the acid and breaking down, which is what I was saying. You think about ceviche. I mean, that is actually a chemical reaction of the acid that is changing the structure of the protein. So it's essentially cooking it. So if you have too much of an acid, especially in your marinade, and you leave the protein in there for too long, you can start to get, two things will happen. One, you'll start to get a little bit of that kind of mushy exterior, but also the interior of the meat, I call it can get a little deli meat-ish, for lack of a better word, but it gets that kind of springiness. But I really think that the only thing that you need to do to, especially something like a steak, if you had a big, super thick steak and you wanted to make sure that the seasoning was going into the steak a little bit more, you might want to sprinkle it with some salt and put it in the refrigerator for 4 hours, 6 hours. And that allows that salt will dissolve. It'll start to pull out a little bit of the moisture of the meat, and then it'll work its way back in. And so you'll get more of a seasoned piece of beef.
Is that called osmosis? I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes.
Maybe it is.
Nailed it again.
Yes. Look at you.
Let's go to Matthew here from Durham. Matthew, welcome to Seasoned.
Hi. I don't really have a question for Bridget, as I just wanted to say what an inspiration she and Julie are. And I was just saying to the other woman that I love your shows. I love your books. Your books are the only thing that I really go to for all my recipes, and I just wanted to say how wonderful you and Julie are, and just how much I've learned from you and enjoy your recipes, and that was about it.
That's a great call, Matthew.
That was so lovely, and
beautiful.
Honestly, it's exactly why we do what we do. So I can't tell you how much I really appreciate that. That just means the world to me.
Well, thank you so much. And throw that compliment toward Julia when you talk to her.
I will absolutely do that.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We got another great question here. We've got Elaine from East Haddam calling. Elaine, welcome to Seasoned.
Hi. Yes, thank you. My question has to do with a garden full of bok choy.
One of my favorites.
And I've never had bok choy before. I'm wondering, I know you can use it in stir fries. I'm wondering if you have some favorite recipes or something other than stir fry as well. What can I do with bok choy?
Oh, Elaine, it's your lucky day. Bridget, let's break it down.
Bok choy. Love bok choy. I mean, it's kind of all the best. It's the best cabbage, right? It's the best little cabbagey thing out there, in my opinion, because it's the root to the little leaves. They're all delicious. I would cut it right in half, right through the core. Keep each half intact. You're going to take a sheet pan, just a rimmed baking sheet. You're going to put it in say a 425 degree oven alone. Let it get nice and hot. You're going to brush the bok choy with a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then place them face down on that super hot pan and let them just roast for maybe 8-10 minutes until they get that caramelized bottom. Flip them over and then drizzle it with a little bit of soy sauce. You can use a gorgeous, like a black vinegar over that would be lovely, and maybe toasted sesame seeds. A little bit of sprinkle of ginger. Be great.
Oh, absolutely.
I have some bok choy in my refrigerator right now. I know what I'm making when I get home.
Yeah,
yes.
For sure. Or just
when in doubt, roast.
Yeah,
right?
roasting is the easiest way to do it, no doubt about it. But if you want to chop it up and throw it into a saute pan with a little bit of oil or a pinch of sesame oil, and then put some garlic, ginger, and scallions in there with it and saute it up nicely. Finish it with a little soy sauce and put some like rice thread type noodles in with it.
Yummy.
With
an entire meal.
Easy meal right there. I mean, I can eat bok choy all day. Is it weird?
Bok choy. No, you are weird.
Yeah,
the fact that you like bok choy is not.
Bok choy fan club card holder number 1.
That's
who I am right now. Elaine, thank you very much.
Will work for bok choy.
That's it. Don't tell them that here. And we've also got Yvonne from Ridgefield calling. Yvonne, welcome to Seasoned.
Hi. I was wondering the most efficient and effective way to chop fresh thyme, because the leaves are so tiny, and if you need any quantity, it's really hard to do.
Great question. Any tips there, Bridget, for that?
Yeah, well, my favorite tip is I get somebody else to do it for me.
Perfect.
That's
Absolutely.
Perfect.
That is a task that I prefer to offload on an unsuspecting person. I think time was written with the correct word, because that's what it takes to get through it all.
Yeah.
It takes quite a bit of time. One thing you can do, and of course this only works with fresh thyme, but if you throw it in the freezer, you're going to lose a little bit of the potency. But if you throw like several sprigs in the freezer, let them get really hard, you can knock them on the counter and the leaves will just come off.
No way.
Does that really work?
Yeah, it works a lot easier. They basically crumble under your hands.
I mean, she's
Kinda
with
like-
America's Test Kitchen. I think she
I've never
knows.
done that.
Hello.
I'm totally doing that tonight.
So
That's
am I.
incredible.
So
yeah, just you got to get them, really, really frozen, and then just go in the opposite direction of the thyme sprig, and you'll just be amazed at how much more comes off.
Wow, that's a new trick in my book. I'm definitely trying that. Yvonne, give that a try.
Thank you.
But you also, the little tiny tender stems of the thyme, you don't need to get rid of those. Those actually have quite a bit of flavor, and you can just mince those right in with the leaves too. So I think people overpick their thyme.
I agree. I absolutely
In
agree.
30 seconds, give us your best, easiest dessert that we could do with summer berries.
Best, easiest dessert. Blueberry cobbler.
Okay.
I mean, make biscuits. Cook the blueberries with some little bit of sugar and maybe a little bit of lemon zest in the bottom of a Dutch oven. Make a biscuit topping, put it on top, and sprinkle with cinnamon sugar and bake.
Perfect. Absolutely. Bridget, we can't thank you enough for joining us. We really appreciate it. Bridget Lancaster is Executive Editorial Director for America's Test Kitchen. Millions of fans know her as the co-host of America's Test Kitchen and Cooks Country on PBS.
Bridget Lancaster,
I have had
thank you so much.
both of you have had so much fun, and I'm sad to see this hour end. So thank you and happy summer.
You are the best.
Happy
We appreciate
summer.
it. Season is produced by Robyn, Doyon-Aitken, Catie Talarski, Emily Charash, and Catrice Claudio. Thanks to Jean Amatruda for running the board. Our summer interns are Anya Grondowski and Mira Raju. I'm Chef Plum.
And I'm Marisol Castro. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week.
Bok choy for life.
Oh my gosh.